Hello there and welcome to my channel. Today I want to add a new LSP server to my Neovim config, but I want to use this opportunity to talk about a concept that I learned from Beck. Beck tweeted this: "For each desired change, make the change easy, warning, this may be hard, then make the easy change." What I think Kent is trying to communicate here is that when we want to make a change to the behavior of our software, we first make a change to the structure that makes it easy to make that change in the behavior. While we're making changes to the structure, we don't change the behavior. Now, ideally, we would have tests to back all of this up, but in my Neovim config, I don't have tests. I want to try and demonstrate how we could use this principle using my Neovim config. So let me show you how I would do that. Let's first take a look at the existing state of my Neovim config. Go to the LSP Lua file, and we can see that this is defining a module, and inside this module we have one function or one method called init, and it's just 224 lines all inside that one function. Right at the top we import some of my custom modules, and then some protected requires around Mason, LSP, and Vim comp and fidget. The first thing I do is call Mason setup, and then Mason LSP config setup, and tell it all of the LSP servers that I want Mason to ensure are installed. There's 5 of them currently, so Deno, JSON LS, Rust Analyzer, Subneco Lua, and TypeScript server. I then create some client capabilities that describe the capabilities that Neovim have so that we can send them to the LSP servers and it knows what our client or our text editor can do. Define this load diagnostics function, which configures the signs and various other configurations regarding the diagnostics. Then define this onAttach function. Inside the onAttach function, we attach the LSP Saga key maps to the buffer. We attach the trouble key maps to the buffer. We call that load diagnostics method from above. And then specifically for TypeScript server, define that I want document formatting or formatting of the code to be turned off. I do this because I use null ls with ESLint and Prettier to do the formatting for TypeScript files. After that, we have each of the different setups for the different LSP servers that I want installed in my configuration. So the first one is TypeScript server. We assign the capabilities, we define the file types to apply to, we pass some options into the TypeScript server. We provide the onAttach function so that that runs when TypeScript files have the TS server LSP attached, and then a specific root directory configuration that I want to apply that helps run inside monorepos. Deno is a little bit simpler, just pass the capabilities, the file types, the onAttach, and the root directory. JSON LS, mostly the same, except I pass in this big list of schemas that I want JSON to know about. Then Lua, much of the same, capabilities, onAttach, some custom settings specifically for the Lua LSP, and then Rust Analyzer, pass in the capabilities. We have a slightly customized onAttach function for Rust. We call the existing onAttach function, but then also set up an auto group with an auto command. And effectively what this auto command is doing is implementing format on save. So what I'm saying here is that Rust Analyzer, please format on save of Rust files. Then the last thing I do is call fidget setup. Now what I have right here, this configuration that I have right now is suboptimal to me. If we go back up to the top, we see that ensure installed lists out the 5 different LSP servers that I want configured for my system. And then somewhere in the middle here, we talk about TypeScript server and turn off formatting. So if I remove TypeScript server from my configuration, I would remove it from that ensure installed table and then I would remove these lines here, and then I would go down and find the setup function and remove it. So right now, you have to make changes in at least 2 places for every LSP server, the ensure installed table and then the setup for that particular server. For TypeScript, it's 3 places, and if we need to make any other kind of customizations within the onAttach, we would put them in there as well, and so it will become unmaintainable fairly quickly. So I want to make this better. Let's have a look at what I've done, because spoiler alert, I've already made these changes, and I just want to show you what I did, and so you can see how we made the easy change easy. So let's have a look. We'll go back into that LSP Lua file. Again, here I've made some changes to the structure of the code that it can be made even better, or further work can be put into this to make it better. But this is where I've stopped for the moment. So right at the top of the file, I define this server configs table. And ideally, anytime we add or change configuration for one of the LSP servers, it will be done inside this table and this table only. Each item in this table is named with the LSP server, and the value is the function. The function is going to return the configuration that we want to apply to our LSP server. So for deno, all we're going to send in is the file types and the root directory. For JSON LS, I found this extra plugin that we can install to get all of the different schemas from the schema store registry, rather than defining them myself like I had before. So for JSON LS, we're just going to return the settings only, pass the schemas in, and validate true. For Lua, the LSP server has changed name to Lua LS, and basically the configuration here is very much similar to what I had before. Rust Analyzer is one that looks slightly different. We're returning a table that has an onAttach function, and I'm calling this make onAttach and passing it a table that has an onAfter. And in that onAfter, we're going into my personal custom utils and pulling them out and calling a create format on save auto command. I'll jump in there, and you can see that it's effectively doing the same as it was before. It's creating an auto command group and an auto command to execute formatting on save. The reason why I pulled this out into a util is because I need to use it in another file as well. So make onAttach, what's this make onAttach? Let's jump to the definition of that. Make onAttach receives options, and if it doesn't receive any options, it just uses an empty table. It returns a function, which is the onAttach function from before, that takes the client name and the buffer number. It calls setup diagnostics, which is now a module method instead of an inline function. And it calls attach keymaps to buffer, which is also a module method and no longer a direct calling to the places where I was attaching LSP Saga and Trouble. So if we want to add other keymaps, we can come into this function here and require the plugin that we want to use, and then call the attach keymaps to buffer function. That will apply to all LSP servers that have been configured with the make onAttach. It also checks to see if the onAfter function has been provided, and if it is a function, we'll go and call it. And so this allows us to extend the onAttach function by passing in an onAfter, and it will run after the setup diagnostics and after the attach keymaps to buffer. Okay, back up to the top. We've done deno, JSON, Lua, Rust, and now we're at TypeScript. So TypeScript server is a function. It returns the file types, the init options. Those are unchanged from before. This one is one where we're calling make onAttach. And in the onAfter, that's where we're doing our custom TypeScript server changes to the client, turning document formatting off only for this server. Root directory, you'll notice that this is slightly different from before. I made some tweaks to this to make it a much better and actually fix some bugs in it. Okay, so let's have a look at the init function, because the init function is the one that actually gets called. We have the protected requires at the top, create the client capabilities. This is mostly the same, just I added a table deep extend because I think I was creating those capabilities incorrectly before. And then I create this servers table, which is local to this init function, and it's empty to start with. Then we loop over the items that are in the server configs, that table that was defined at the top of the file. For each of the items, we call the make server config function. And if we get back a valid configuration, we'll then put it into the servers table. So we'll add an item to this table with the server name, for example, type TS server, and we'll take the server's config and we'll merge into it the capabilities and the default on attach function, which is what make on attach creates for us. So we don't have to add the key maps and the setup diagnostics to every single LSP. Then we call Mason setup, and we also call Mason LSP config setup. Same thing as we were doing before with the ensure installed, except we're dynamically creating the table of keys, the table of LSP servers from that servers table. So we only have to define it once up the top in the server configs table. We also call this setup handlers function. We pass it a table with a function in it. This function gets called for every single LSP server that Mason is loading for us. So the server name, for example, TS server, gets passed into the LSP config. So this is effectively lsp config.ts server.setup, which we were calling before, but explicitly calling it. And we pass in the configuration that was created from that function that was called above. And then the last thing I do is protected require fidget. And if we don't have fidget, we'll stop there. We still get LSP servers configured for us. And if we do get fidget, then call setup and fidget will be enabled. So that is the changes that I've made. So what do I do now to add a new LSP server? Well, the LSP server that I want to add to my configuration is quick-lint-js. If you remember from before, I specifically turn off TypeScript server for JavaScript files, and I want to have a linter for JavaScript files, and quick-lint-js is a fast linter for JavaScript files, and it will help me find bugs in JavaScript programs. It is created by a Twitch streamer and YouTuber, Stragger. Stragger is a great member of the community and helps out lots of developers online on twitch.tv, so go and check them out. So let's get quick-lint-js working with my configuration. So as I said before, I just want to have to add it to only one place. So let's jump up to the top. We'll go down to just before Rust, because I want to organize these in alphabetical order. And we'll add quick_lint_js. We'll set it to a function. And that function is just going to return an empty table because I don't need to make any other configuration changes to quick-lint-js. It's going to work as is. We'll save it. We'll exit Neovim. I'll delete all of my Neovim user data and cache so that we start from fresh install, and we'll start up Neovim. Lazy will initialize and install all of the plugins that are needed. Once that's done, then the setup will run. And you can see down here that installing quick-lint-js Mason LSP config is doing that for us. We'll let the tree sitter parsers install, and once that's done, let's go have a look at the Mason status. We can see that quick-lint-js was installed, and all other LSP servers that are required have been installed. That's great. Now I can jump over to a very simple JavaScript project, open up Neovim. we'll go to the one.js file that I have, and we can see very quickly diagnostics are now popping up, and they're provided from quick-lint-js. And as I mentioned before, I only had to add quick-lint-js configuration just to one place in my lsp.lua file, and it immediately was installed and available for use in JavaScript files. So that's the addition of a new LSP server, quick-lint-js, to my Neovim config. If you like this video, please consider leaving it a like. If you want to see more content from me, please consider subscribing. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next video.